If you've turned on a television, read a newspaper, or looked at the internet lately, you've no doubt come across the term fake news. But what does that really mean? Traditionally, it might make you think of things like the Weekly World News, claiming that a shocking CIA leak reveals Vice President Dick Cheney is a robot, or maybe the more modern Onion, with outrageous headlines like Craigslist server contracts HPV, and G175 nations convene to discuss how things can't possibly be any worse. But more recently, the term fake news has taken on a different meaning. Google Trends shows the interest in a particular search term over time. Here's a graph of worldwide Google searches for the term fake news, showing relatively little interest until around November 2016, with a peak the week of January 8, 2017. With a new interest in the term comes a slightly new definition. Believe it or not, the best definition of fake news actually comes from Wikipedia. Fake news is a type of yellow journalism or propaganda that consists of deliberate misinformation or hoaxes spread via traditional print and broadcast news media or online social media. The new fake news is trickier than the old Weekly World News, that the information presented isn't always patently false, but instead may contain misinterpretations or extreme bias to misrepresent facts. Melissa Zimdars, an associate professor of communication and media at Merrimack College in Massachusetts, has created a public Google Doc listing that has news sites that distribute incorrect information. Titled False, Misleading, Clickbaity, and Satirical, quote, news, unquote, sources, the site categorizes 1,000 media outlets based on 12 categories. Now, fake news are sources that, according to Zimdars, entirely fabricate information, disseminate deceptive content, or grossly distort actual news reports. Satirical sites are ones that use humor, irony, exaggeration, ridicule, and false information to comment on current events. These are sites like The Onion that are often so over the top that hardly anyone actually believes that they're real news stories. Now, extreme biased sources are those that come from a particular point of view and may rely on propaganda, decontextualize information, and opinions distorted as facts. Sources in the conspiracy category are well-known promoters of kooky conspiracy theories, like that humans never landed on the moon. Rumor mill sources are those that traffic in rumors, gossip, innuendo, and unverified claims. State news comes from sources in repressive states operating under government sanction, like RT.com from Russia. Junk science sites are sources that promote pseudoscience, metaphysics, naturalistic fallacies, and other scientifically dubious claims. Now, the hate news category consists of sources that actively promote racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, and other forms of discrimination. Clickbait are sources that provide generally credible content, but use exaggerating, misleading, or questionable headlines, social media descriptions, and/or images. Now, these sources may also use sensational language to generate interest, click-throughs, and shares, but their content is typically verifiable. The proceed with caution category are those sources that might be reliable, but whose contents require further verification or should be read in conjunction with other sources. Then there's political sources that do provide generally verifiable information in support of certain points of view or political orientations. And finally, you have the credible news sources that circulate news and information in a manner consistent with traditional and ethical practices in journalism. Now, Zimdars does caution that even credible sources sometimes rely on clickbait-style headlines or occasionally make mistakes. No news organization is perfect, which is why a healthy news diet consists of multiple sources of information. Patent attorney Vanessa Otero created this handy chart on major news sources based on their partisan bias, with the New York Times squarely in the middle, surrounded by the Washington Post, Associated Press, NPR, and the BBC. Otero recognizes some sources like Slate and The Guardian that skew liberal, and others like the Wall Street Journal and Financial Times that skew conservative, but are still reputable news sources. Now, once you move out of the hyper-partisan lines and down past the meets high standards marks, you'll find some other major news sources Otero does not recommend.